What's up guys, it's Tommy here and welcome to a huge, massive, brand new update on Manchester City's potential relegation into the 130 financial breaches that they committed against Premier League rules, and we have a major update on when actually the verdict could be announced. So the big question is, could there be a verdict and sentence announced officially in the next few weeks on Man City's 130 charges? So that's what we will look at in this video, and also we will look at how Man City are trying to destroy the Premier League as we know it, because if they are successful in overturning the fair market value sponsorship deal rules, then the Premier League could cease to exist as we know it, and it would be just a different competition with awful consequences, which means that potentially Newcastle and Man City, the two of the richest clubs in the league, they could outspend everyone by far, and they could basically destroy the competition in the Premier League. And that's why the Premier League is the most popular league in the world, because it's the most competitive. But if the Man Cities of this world are successful in overturning the fair market value sponsorship rules, then they could outspend everyone, including Manchester United, Arsenal, Liverpool, and even Tottenham and Chelsea potentially, and they could just outspend everyone apart from Newcastle, and then it would be just an arms race between Newcastle and Man City on who can win the Premier League, spending the most money in the Premier League. Do you want to see that or not? Let me know in the comments below your thoughts. So Pep Guardiola suggested in the last few weeks that a verdict and a sentence towards Manchester City getting potentially relegated for 130 charges of breaking Premier League rules against them, that could be announced in the next few weeks. And there had been an expectation within the legal community that this would not be the case. The expectation was that the independent commission would first make findings on a liability, so determine whether Man City committed the rule breaches. Then there would be a follow-up hearing to argue for and against these applicable sanctions. This would be normal in such a complex case, because this case has been running on for years, and Man City tried to hinder the investigation at every single stop, every single way possible. But this is a very complex case with so many charges, and it's especially relevant in connection with the specific charges of breaching the profit and sustainability rules. This is because the implication of such a breach can be argued in different ways, but this would be difficult to do at the same time as arguing you aren't even liable. So it only makes sense for the hearing to be split into a part 1 for liability and part 2 on sanctions. So then why did Pep Guardiola say that Man City were expecting a sentence within a few weeks? There have been murmurings that the Premier League is expecting something similar as well, and senior Manchester City executives recently briefed reporters that they are only expecting a fine. This would be an odd thing to say if the hearing was 2 parts and they still don't know where they stood on liability. So could the expectation of a 2-part hearing be wrong? There is a possibility to consider that it might be wrong, because when you are defending yourself in a case like this, you can argue the facts of the case. So did you or did you not undertake the alleged actions? Or you could argue the law itself, so you could argue that the rules you are accused of breaching are unlawful, and if so, what is the appropriate sanction? I've always stated that when it comes to the facts of the case, Premier League has overwhelming evidence in the form of leaked emails and in the form of Man City providing them with all the emails of in-house communication with their sponsors, their executives, and Man City was ordered to provide all evidence, and so the Premier League will have a much larger evidence base than just the leaked emails, but they alone are overwhelming. Even the leaked emails would be enough to convict Manchester City to be found guilty. So they are explicit, full of context, and these emails make clear that Man City undertook the actions they are charged with. So these emails prove beyond any reasonable doubt that Man City are guilty. That is inarguable, or at least not one single person has ever been able to afford an alternative explanation for the emails. So nobody came forward and disproved these emails that they mean something else. And so a real possibility is that Man City did not argue the facts at the hearing, because doing so they could open themselves up to greater reputational harm if they could argue that the emails are false. Then they would be committing perjury. Instead, what if Man City focused their defense on the law itself? And the Man City might argue that the law itself is unlawful, and this is what they actually did in the associated party transaction rules hearing. As it happens, they sought to attack a crucial law that connects with their case on the 130 charges. So they are arguing the lawfulness of applying fair market value to sponsorship deals. They lost that argument at the APT hearing, and maybe that was a dry run for Lord Panic. If so, then arguments relating to applicability of sanctions attributable to the charged actions would have likely already occurred, making it possible that we could find out a verdict and the sentence at the same time. Could Lord Panic and the others have successfully undermined the lawfulness of key rules again? I doubt it, given the wording of the APT decision. It was crystal clear on the lawfulness of fair market value sponsorship deals. It's not impossible, but I still believe that the most probable outcome is that Man City are found liable on all charges. Even if Man City were inexplicably able to achieve the same findings as at the Court of Arbitration for Sport, which seem impossible because there was just a few emails as evidence in the Court of Arbitration for Sport. In this Premier League hearing, the Independent Commission has hundreds of emails and hundreds of documents, a mountain of evidence against Man City. But even if Man City were somehow to achieve the same findings as at the Court of Arbitration for Sport, applying those to the Premier League rulebook looks serious enough to warrant relegation in its own right, because CAS found that Man City executives sought to subvert, to go around and break the rules. It found insufficient evidence that the subversion that took place, but the attempt alone to subvert the rules in itself is a very serious breach of the Premier League rules, and that's why I think the Premier League will relegate Manchester City. And there is a cause to think that when the decision drops, the sanctions will drop with it. So tick-tock, Man City, the clock is ticking, and hopefully Man City will get relegated, because Man City actually are in danger of destroying the Premier League as we know it. Sam Wallace, a very reputable, very good journalist in England, is reporting that Man City's legal onslaught on the Premier League's financial rules could allow the wealthiest clubs like Newcastle and Man City to outspend everybody without limits and to kill actually off the competition, to kill the Premier League as we know it. That's what Man City are in danger of doing. He's saying that there is potentially a future Premier League in which there are no financial controls, without any limit on spending, without any regulation of the size of commercial deals negotiated with companies under the same ownership, and the demolition of the current system by Man City's legal challenges is certainly doing its best to get us there. What would that look like? Certainly it would favor Man City and Newcastle. Man City have the second largest commercial income of any club in the world after Real Madrid. There would be no longer any requirement for the club to justify their sizable inventory of deals with Abu Dhabi airline, Etihad, and other state sponsorships from Abu Dhabi as well. And Newcastle United would be able to spend whatever they wished, should the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund that controls the club choose to do so. And they haven't spent a lot of money because the PSR rules and the financial fair play rules don't allow Newcastle to spend a lot of money. But they would have done a Man City, no question, if they were allowed to do. Of course, the fans of Newcastle and Man City would welcome this, a freedom from regulation, the capacity to invest. And it feels on a knife edge, Sam Wallace is reporting now, with the Premier League and Man City awaiting judgment in another arbitration on the validity of the current associated party transaction rules that were amended in November, and Man City and 3 other clubs voted against these rules, but 16 clubs voted for these new amended rules. Man City's legal challenge to these APT rules saw those rules voided respectively. And the rules exist above all for the benefit of the competition of the Premier League. It is the rise of the competition, the Premier League, domestically and globally, that has driven the success of the clubs. Some began the last 3 decades at the top. Others have risen from mid-table or in the lower leagues, and from the most famous to the smallest. It has been the collective that has benefited them all. Even the best team needs opposition to beat rivals with which to feud, calamity and triumph. If you lose the competitiveness, you lose it all. You lose what the Premier League is all about and why it is such a really popular league to watch. Wealthy owners and investors like Abu Dhabi have not been drawn to the Premier League because one club takes precedence, or not for long anyway. They were drawn by the lively success of the competition and by extension the status and projection it gave them around the world. If you lose the competitiveness of the Premier League, you lose it all. You kill the Premier League as a product, as a league, as a brand. You kill it off. With financial controls destroyed, there is no Premier League as we know it. What sustains its popularity is not just the biggest clubs, but the jeopardy they face. That means the decline of Manchester United and even Man City's recent winter slump. All of them are as engrossing as the triumphs. Brighton beat Chelsea in 4 days twice, knocked them out of the FA Cup and then smashed them in the Premier League as well. In Brighton's case, it has been made possible via the funding of the owner Tony Bloom, but chiefly his smart transfers and his shrewdness. He may not have to manage a greater cost of his shareholder loans on his profit and sustainability compliance, but he remains in the game. Lose all financial controls and it is hard to see the upside, even for an investor as wealthy as Bloom, in backing his hometown club against those whose revenue will be limitless. If you have a richer ownership and they can spend whatever they like, they will always win. There is a big difference between being able to spend the revenue that is regulated and earned in independently verified fair market value deals than spending revenue that is whatever a club declares it to be. The competitive nature of the Premier League depends upon it, and by extension what broadcasters are prepared to pay. Because if a lot fewer people will watch the Premier League, then a lot fewer broadcasters will pay for it and a lot fewer money it will generate, and the Premier League will eat its own tail, if you like. The Premier League's current APT rules are stuck out as a void in the weeks to come. The competition will revert to the related party transaction rules that predated the first set of APT rules. In the end, it all goes back to what you want. A Premier League in which the difference in spending is kept within reasonable ratio from top to bottom, or a Premier League in which your commercial income bears some relation to the market, or one in which it is whatever you say it is. A trip around some European leagues that once considered themselves rivals to the Premier League provide a reminder of what happens when an elite is entrenched. Look at France. The Zone is trying to negotiate its French league contract in the wake of plummeting subscriber numbers. Real Madrid and Barcelona earn so much more than everybody else in La Liga, and there is the top 3 clubs in La Liga and then the rest. And if Man City are successful and the financial rules are destroyed in the Premier League, then the Premier League will be destroyed as a competition as well. That's my opinion. I fully agree with Sam Wallace. Bringing the hammer down on the framework of a competition that has become the most popular in the world is very, very dangerous. What is left if a lot of owners walk away as a result, and if a competition is no longer governed by rules or the spirit of that alliance that made it such a global phenomenon? So yeah, let me know what you think about this. I really hope that Man City will get severely punished and they aren't allowed to destroy the Premier League as we know it, because I absolutely love the competition. Thanks for watching, guys. Leave your thoughts down below. See you later. Goodbye.